Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit different. This is a little bit of stream of consciousness. I am working through something. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but whenever I talk about mental illness, I want people to understand that even though I talk about this stuff, I'm still going through it. I still have daily struggles. Even though I've written a book, even though I go into schools, even though I do all these things, I still struggle from day to day with various things. And at the moment, it's acceptance. And I'm just going to dive into this today and we'll see how it goes. Welcome to Shattered the Podcast. STP is the story of my journey from the depths of mental illness to a place where I could live again. I'm the kind of guy that had a job right from the word dot. Even before I moved out of home, I wanted to earn money. I wanted to bring in an income. I wanted to have that independence that having some money will give you. And one of the hardest things for me to deal with at the moment or in the last few years is the fact that it's very difficult for me to bring money into the house. I can do a job, pretty much any job, really well for a couple of months. But then I burn out very, very quickly. And it's been really hard to accept that about myself, to accept the fact that this is who I am. And this is where acceptance comes in, because where do you go when you realize that you aren't going to reach the potential that you thought you had? And when you have a mental illness like I do, it's hard to not blame the mental illness. It's hard to not be angry at my circumstance. Now, I was hurt in the workplace. We went and spoke to some lawyers as soon as it happened. And the guy said, look, the way that the law is written at the moment is you can't get anything. He said, it breaks my heart at the moment. We've got all these nice people who are coming in. They've been wronged, and there's nothing that they can do to help us to recompense us. And when I tell my story and the violent assault that led to my diagnosis of complex PTSD, people automatically assume that I must have got a massive payout from it. And I didn't. I didn't get anything. We got work cover. And the thing about work cover is that every 6 months, no matter where you're at in the process, it gets lessened. So while immediately I was getting my full wage for, I think it was about 3 months, it then cut down, and then it went to half, and then it went to a quarter, and then eventually it petered out into nothing. So my family was thrown into a really desperate state. I worked with people with disabilities, so I wasn't earning, a massive income, but I was doing shift work, and that kind of supplemented it. If I was still able to do that work, we would be very comfortable with my wife's wage and mine. But the fact is that, well, I couldn't go back to that job. And then I realized how broken I was, and I went to work for the public service thinking that I could just be a normal person. I could just go and do a 9 to 5 and and take care of my mental health. But the thing is that you can't hide mental illness. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. You can't pretend that the factors that uh, making you feel frustrated and angry don't exist. The factors, the depression, the lack of understanding, the bouts of anger that people have no concept of where they come from, the bouts of depression. They don't understand why you can be so nice one day and then for the next week you don't say a word to anyone. And your work colleagues look at that and they're like, what is going on here? Or, you know, this person's, well, for want of a better word, this person's crazy. They aren't normal. They aren't right. And the thing of it is, for me, is I'm a very self aware person. A doctor, as soon as I got the PTSD diagnosis, he said, Mark, you're in a lucky situation because you're going to get the chance to do what very few people do. And he said, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to learn who you really are, which is something that not a lot of people do. He said, you are going to get to know yourself. And in that, I am self aware, in that I am very aware of my limitations. I'm very aware of um, my effect on people. However, my perception, my understanding of that effect is really warped. Um, just about every conversation I have with any person, I'll replay it in my head and I'll find reasons why that person dislikes me through that conversation. Um, it's one of the reasons why um, I don't like to sit in silence because that's where my head goes. It just evaluates a conversation that I've had, and it's, oh, you said you worded this badly, and now that person hates you. All of this around acceptance is, I'm struggling with this thought that this is the best that I can ever do, that I can't do any better than this, that I have no skills or potential that is marketable or could, provide a little bit for my family. And this idea that this mental illness is going to stop me from doing things that I want to do, that I feel I have the ability to do, because I just don't have the capacity to do it. And this is where acceptance comes from me. Now, why am I talking about this? Am I in danger? No, absolutely not. I can tell you categorically. Suicide for me is out of the question. If you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know why that is. The narrative in my head that I have to stay far outweighs the narrative in my head that wants me to believe that there's no hope and nothing that I can achieve. But just because that's off the table, it doesn't mean that, I'm sort of going, well, I'm happy with this situation. And acceptance of this, acknowledging this is one thing, accepting it is a different thing. And that's why I'm struggling. And why am I going to post this? If you've listened this long to this podcast, you're probably going, what the hell, Mark? What are you doing? All I want to show people, all I want to tell people is I've always said about this podcast, it's about the honest journey of what it's like to live with mental illness. And I can't pretend that when I go out to a school and I'm bright and I'm positive, I can't pretend that that's all of who I am, because it's not. The struggle of saying that, yes, I have this mental illness and yes, it's going to limit me. It's tough and it's hard. But you know what? The answer is that I can now look back and I can look at the hardest of times and I can go, you know what? I got through that. And it wasn't until I had a bit of a relapse last year that I realized how bad really was and how good this is in comparison to that. And I'm not really one for comparative kind of treatment. Think about how bad things were. If I look at that in acceptance, and I have to look at that, and I look at it and go, you know what? I have to accept that things have gotten better and that things will continue to get better. And if anything, I don't like to call it this, but if anything, that's what I see as hope. All righty. Oh man. Yeah. Hey, look, have a great week. I will speak to you again next week. Bye for now. Hey, thanks for joining us on Shattered the Podcast. I'm Mark. Special thanks to my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also to Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And we can't forget the amazing band Adelaide, who let us use their song as our theme. For more information, check us out on all your socials, STP Shattered the Podcast.